Nico Lechuga, one of the founding partners of Ego Death Capital. I left PE to be an entrepreneur. I own a hot sauce company, but I've always enjoyed investing. What we all came to the conclusion was that there was the projects that all the VCs at that time period were flawed because they weren't decentralized and they weren't secure. And what they wanted to build was going to migrate over there, and that there was this asymmetric investment opportunity.
Is there a world where you can see, and this, it's somebody infinitely smarter than I am is going to have to identify it, right? Or build it. Is there a world where you can see pure non-custodial Bitcoin yield?
I think that you're still going to have the tech risk. So think about like if you're depositing into like a DLC, so let's just smart contract on Bitcoin that's dictating a winner based on a future state. And there's $1 billion locked in that. The amount of people that are going to be incentivized to break that is going to be highly incentivized. So while you don't have the exposure to like platform risk of like a FTX taking your Bitcoin and moving it somewhere else, you still have the technology risk. And I think that's where like the hesitancy on our part is coming from, of like how battle tested do these things are these things before we get to a certain critical mass. And I would say that like from our conversations with traditional financial partners, so you're talking about like massive funds, moving tens of billions of dollars, or liquidity providers in highly developed markets, liquid trading environments. They're fascinated with this approach because it can serve as almost like a cash account for an asset that they don't want to sell, right? They're able to attain like a yield on it. But again, I think like that you hit on this right out of the gate of the biggest risk with this are Oracle risk, with you can kind of get around by having the Oracle not know about like the contract that they are being the Oracle for. Right. You have multiple articles. So you can reduce that risk a lot, but the tech risk is very inherent to the projects and would require a lot of people like looking under the hood and trying to break it.
And so this is, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said like, if somebody puts $1 billion into this, like, okay, that is the ultimate incentive to try to break the tech, right? I mean, you're going to try to pull that $1 billion out, right? I mean, that's why we know Bitcoin works, because Bitcoin is the ultimate incentive to hack a nearly $1 trillion market if you wanted to pull it off, right? And every project that I speak to, the first thing that they tell me is, oh no, but we got audited. We had an audit come in and they audited our smart contract framework. They audited our tech stack and it works. And now the caveat to this is, and usually when I interview these companies, they don't know this, but I'm actually a former auditor, right? So I used to be a PwC auditor. I audited BlackRock, Vanguard, all the big asset management companies. Yeah. So I know what an actual audit looks like, not from a tech perspective, but from what fundamentally an audit perspective should be. Yeah. And this is where I tell them like, okay, so you're telling me that as the auditor of this, you're going to be taking on the personal liability of everything should something go wrong. So if that $1 billion gets hacked, you guys, either through some insurance policy that you've been able to scam a insurance broker out of, or through your own personal net worth, you're willing to put that at risk because you attest to the actual value of that smart contract and that it is completely unhackable. And the first thing they always say is like, oh no, I would never do that. Yeah. And the first thing I say is your audit is worthless then. Like that's not what auditing is. You're giving a opinion. You didn't actually go through the process of what a true audit should reflect. And unfortunately, we don't have, I mean, there is no framework for and there's no regulatory body, obviously, for having as strict of an audit procedure on tech stacks the way that you do for public companies that auditors like me used to do, right? And I don't think it should be that way because I do think that public companies are severely overregulated to begin with. I mean, the best regulation is no regulation, right? But either way, it's hard to trust any of these Bitcoin or crypto audit firms when the only thing that they care about is that little chunk of money they're making in the contract and they're not actually putting any goddamn skin in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you hit this on the head. Like, and I think that it's probably due to your past background. So this is where I think that the incentives are different depending on the users that are engaging with it. So like if I am, Goldman's too sophisticated. So Goldman would like see right through this. But if I am a call it like a trading firm that's maybe a hedge fund that has tens of millions of dollars. Depending on the sophistication of that, or if I'm just a firm that like I'm a family run business that I have like tens of millions of dollars, what I might want, right, to give me comfort is something that you just hit on, like doesn't mean shit. So like a SOC audit, right? In this setting, does the SOC auditor have the ability to understand like that DLC and that like highly nuanced code from this like young genius programmer that everybody in Bitcoin's like, wow, we've never seen that happen before? Like there's no shot, right? But that person wants that rubber stamp for their job to basically say like, hey, we did this with an agency that we recognize of SOC is like what we kind of see. What I think that we got to before this and what needs to happen and what we do as part of our diligence process is you're grabbing the opinions of some of the most respected developers in the space. And you're saying like, can you audit this code and can you break it? And you give people incentives to break it. So you give them like bug bounty programs and you have like that incentive, just like within like Bitcoin core chain, right? That incentive probably ossifies that project. And to the original point, like that has to happen because there's going to be flaws, and it really has to be probably a step function of, okay, we found this, like let's harden that. And then you have the best developers on top of it. But to your point, I think like if it was truly risk free, there'd be no yield because there'd be no risk. But because of the inherent like technology risk in this setting or the inherent other risks that are there, that is what people are looking for. And they're comfortable, I guess, with some degree of like rehypothecation.
I mean, I guess there is no reward without risk, right? And even if that risk is just technology risk, that doesn't mean that it's riskless.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. And that technology risk, I think like not to, you hit the nail on the head. There's that technology risk is large, and we need other outside third-party opinions of very, very highly respected developers within the space on projects and on the code.
That's why I trust bug bounty programs infinitely more than I would ever trust a audit stamp from any of the supposed cryptographic audit firms, right? Yeah. I have to assume, I always assume that the community is smarter than a centralized agency. Especially when it comes to things like this. I mean, that's why Bitcoin's as successful as it is. Bitcoin is the ultimate bug bounty program, and it's unhackable. Ethereum and even the other cryptocurrencies, right? Like you can hack a wallet, you can hack an exchange, you can hack custody accounts. You can't hack a lot of the layer ones. Now, granted, we have seen it happen, and those projects died, rightfully so. We've seen custodians get hacked, and they've died, rightfully so. I think we have to get out of the mentality that people like you and I have coming from TradFi, that we have to have these centralized agencies audit and review certain processes, and rather allow the community to play with the test net, have that bug bounty program, try to break it. If they do, congrats. Maybe you win a Bitcoin or something like that. But if you can't, and nobody's able to do it over a sustained period of time, okay, that's a severe mitigation of technology risk. And that's something that I would be willing to entertain. I just have not yet seen any Bitcoin yield generating platform that's non-custodial that has even gone through that stage. It seems like everybody is trying to get to market so quickly, and it's so much easier to just issue a theoretical audit report on these platforms rather than go through a year or two of a bug bounty program like that. And I get it. They have investors. They want to be first to market. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong and haven't seen enough, but have you seen anything that would fit that